we did see that, we've seen a continuation of what we saw in the pandemic, which is an increase in people who are drinking every day.
Across the Village Media Network and wherever you get your favorite podcasts, welcome back to Closer Look on this Tuesday night with Michael Friscoletti, our editor-in-chief. I'm Scott Sexsmith. We're well removed from the pandemic, and I don't know about you, but sometimes I still feel the effects from it.
I still feel like it was yesterday, the pandemic.
I know.
It was so damaging in so many ways, and I look and see the impacts it had on adults I know, myself included, on the kids I know, and then just the craziness of being off school for all that time, and all those things happen. And I think we're still years away from kind of being past it. I mean, it still comes up in regular discussions in the day. It's mentioned still in news stories all the time about something related to the pandemic, including the fact that the Canada Revenue Agency is still trying to get $10 billion in pandemic payments back. That's a whole other story. But the Center for Addiction and Mental Health put out their annual report yesterday.
Yes, they did.
Talking about this. This is a report that covers habits across Ontario, including drinking, drug use, and also people's physical and mental health conditions. So it's a survey that's been going on for almost 50 years, and it traces a whole bunch of different important factors. And it's really stark when you look at the difference between 2019, right before the pandemic, and 2025. And, I think the general sense is, the experts knew that we were going to deal with some things in 2020, that people were going to be feeling anxious and their mental health was going to drop.
Of course.
And the fact that they were going to probably use substances a lot more because they're home alone.
Yeah.
I think they all thought that would eventually go back, and that really hasn't been the case, and that's kind of what this report.
Well, it's tough to come back from that.
It's hard to come back from that. So I think we're seeing that, and that's definitely what this latest report gets into. It was all over the news yesterday, and today we're going to talk to Dr. Leslie Buckley, who's the chief of the Addictions Division at CAMH, who is going to give us a bit of a deeper dive into it and kind of where we go from here.
On Monday, the Center for Addiction and Mental Health released its annual Monitor, a long-running survey that tracks adult substance use and mental health across the province of Ontario. It started way back in 1977, and it's actually one of the oldest ongoing health surveys in the world. The report provides valuable insight into trends around smoking, drinking, drug use, and mental and physical health among adults in Ontario. Joining us tonight to talk about the findings and where we go from here is Dr. Leslie Buckley, the chief of the Addictions Division at CAMH. Dr. Buckley, thanks for your time tonight. We appreciate it.
Great to see you both, and thanks for highlighting this topic, which we obviously feel is so important. So thank you for that.
You're welcome, and it certainly is. Doctor, before we get into the specific findings, can you tell us how the survey is administered? Who are you talking to in order to get these results?
Thank you for asking that, and also for mentioning how long it's been running. So the fact that, it's been running since 1977 gives such a great opportunity to see trends over time. So one thing to get a cross-section of data, but it's really, really great to have year after year and see how things change over time. So this study sees over 4,000 participants connected through, to double check on that, but I think it's through social media or email now, because telephone is no longer as easy to use as it was.
And it's like a panel, like a web survey they fill out, doctor, with very detailed questions?
Yes. Yeah, multiple questions, as you can see from the data, pulling up, so many different issues. It's so great to see, a survey that combines substance use questions with mental health questions, so we can see those, how those interact over time as well.
Let's jump right in here. When it comes to people's drinking behaviors, the report found some significant differences from before the pandemic until now. What did you discover?
So, what was interesting was that there was some good news and some bad news, in the alcohol data. So on the positive side, we saw that in the general population, less people were consuming any alcohol over the past year. So a slight reduction there, which may not be surprising. You probably hear, a lot of people talking about trying to reduce alcohol because there's been, some more guidance out recently about increased risks for cancer. And we always talk about less is best when it comes to alcohol. So some people, I think, are probably trying to change their alcohol habits. But on the other side, we did see that, we've seen a continuation of what we saw in the pandemic, which is an increase in people who are drinking every day. Rates of people who are binge drinking weekly, and increased risk of people with hazardous alcohol use, which means that they're sort of at risk for an alcohol use disorder.
The alcohol dependence data is I don't know what the right descriptor is, but not shocking, but it is concerning. Just to say it here, it's risen from 7.4% in 2019 to 13.9% in 2020, and it's remained at 12.1%. So it hasn't really gone down. Did you guys expect to see these kind of spike the way they did during the pandemic, but eventually go back down?
I think we thought they would go back down. So, we know that, the enormous impact of the pandemic on social interactions and people's well-being. We knew that there could be changes, because of that. But the fact that we're having this sort of ongoing change, I think really makes us think about why. So, once you have some behavior changes and trends and habits, it may be that it's hard to change back and come out of those. There also could be other factors at play.
I was going to ask you, that's my follow-up. What are some of the other factors that could be at play here, Doctor? It's not just people coming out of the pandemic. Obviously, there's other things. Yeah,
so it changes a little bit per substance. So, with cannabis, one of the things that the monitor shows us is that for many, many decades, cannabis use was at about 10%. Mm-hmm. And then in around 2014, when we had sort of medical marijuana, and then even, more so once we had legalization later on in that decade, we see, a tripling over that long period of time. Not so much change in the last 5 years, but that's one substance that was really changing based on, I think, the changing legal status and the medical marijuana piece. With alcohol, we see, we know that the biggest factor in terms of changing the rates of alcohol, the amount that the population is consuming, is accessibility. Mm-hmm. So that means we call it retail density. So the number of places that you can buy the alcohol, the number of hours that they're open, and then the price of alcohol. So, there's some other obviously some political changes with the convenience store now selling some alcohol that, would probably play a little bit of a factor there. And then we know that, with opioids, there've been just, it's been so challenging and tragic with the shift to, and the, a new experience with fentanyl, which came in sort of mid last decade. And so, there are other factors at play as well, but certainly, when you look across the substances, we really saw the biggest change in the pandemic year. And then, just not the same kind of rebound, treatment that we would have liked to have seen. Mm-hmm.
So to be clear, Doctor, it's not that more people are drinking, it's that people are drinking differently. Is that fair to say?
You're saying it perfectly there. Perfectly.
Can you build on that a bit, Doctor, so we all understand?
Yeah. So, we talk probably a lot, from a health and harms perspective about the more severe end of alcohol. So people who are consuming, let's say, daily and large amounts, where it might be affecting their life to the point where they might fit the criteria for an alcohol use disorder. Mm-hmm. And we know there are a lot of health harms that come with that around, liver health, number one, and increased risk of 7 different types of cancer, even cardiac. Some things that people aren't really aware of. But what we don't talk about a lot are some of the other types of drinking that we do talk about in this survey. Like the binge drinking is really interesting because that means more than 5 drinks on a weekly basis. And, you might only have it that one day. So your overall consumption may not be that high. But there's a risk, different types of risks to binge drinking. So, whether it's increased accidents, head injuries, broken bones, car accidents, things that we worry a lot about, or even, just problems in relationships, arguments, increased, spending when you are intoxicated, and then legal issues that can arise as well. So one of the things this study does that I like on the alcohol piece is it also sort of, shows that the binge drinking pattern is also important.
I appreciate that, Doctor. I just want to go back to what you talked about with the beer store, the corner stores, and the grocery stores allowing liquor sales. Is it too early to say whether this may have been the wrong direction for the provincial government to go down to offer it outside of the typical business hours of the beer store and the LCBO?
Yeah, so there had been natural experiments, and that was where, we'd really been able to harness that data to know that the increased accessibility is a factor. When you're, a politician, you're balancing, a lot of different things, and I think probably the convenience was a factor. Now we're always looking to reduce the convenience, and so we don't make those kinds of decisions, but we do feel like it's our role to make sure that we put out the information that we do know and the risks, and really try to make sure that we can share that with the decision makers.
Doctor, we certainly know with tobacco, there's warning labels up to wazoo. Is the hope that that's the goal someday where alcohol is concerned?
Yeah, so there's a push for that for sure, and it could happen. And again, there was a nice pilot study that showed that had a positive effect.
And I know that's where the Senate's talking about that. We've actually talked about that a bit on our show. It's interesting. You talk about the importance of data. I couldn't agree more, Doctor. The more information we can get out there, the more factual data we can put out that helps people understand how, say, a piece of legislation may or may not be working as planned is hugely important. Beyond alcohol use, Doctor, there were also key mental and physical health indicators that were looked at in this survey that didn't quite rebound from pandemic levels either. Can you just give us some highlights of what the monitor found in terms of mental health?
Sure. So it's a little bit of the same story in terms of really not seeing the rebound from the pandemic that we would have liked to have seen. So, one of the indicators that I like to point to is people's self-rated mental health. So the number of people who said it was fair or poor was 12.9 in 2019. And then in this last, year, it was 29%. So that's a really, big difference. And then same for people who reported moderate to serious psychological distress. So, those are indicators that we don't like to see. And I'm not sure if you notice the gender difference, but you can see that the males were tending to, to show signs of increase of the higher substance use. And we did see a gender trend with females along the lines of the poor mental health.
Yes, and all those numbers are up. And it's a loaded question, Doctor, but what are some of the whys?
Wow, that's certainly a tough question. So, clearly a lot of the change happened at the pandemic. So when you think about what was happening in the world at that time, it really highlights to you the importance of the social interaction. So we're social creatures, and it may be that changes from the pandemic and trends have stuck around. So, questions to even ask yourself, all of us could ask is, are you having as many get-togethers or hosting as many get-togethers as you did? Are you spending as much time with your friends? Are you, watching Netflix more than you'd like? There may be things that we just got in the habit of that haven't changed. And it might be, able to provide some light in terms of what are the basics that people need? What are the things that people need for good mental health?
It's a great point, Doctor, because there were some habits we picked up during the pandemic where there was a lot of loneliness. There was a lot of sitting in your house watching streaming services, and that's kind of stayed the same. Do you foresee a scenario where we can turn this around, say 5 years from now? Because I feel like when you read this report, it can feel kind of depressing, right, Doctor? That things are getting worse. We feel it. We see it amongst our families, amongst our kids. Is there a way to turn this around?
It's a great point. I didn't mention the workplace. How now there's a push for return to work. That's another area. Where people. Where we saw a new trend that happened in 2020. So it could be a factor. So that's an example of a shift that's happening now in 2025 that, who knows, it may not be good for mental health. It may be good for mental health, but things that happen, maybe we are starting to reverse some of those habits and trends is kind of my point here. And we might see some benefit, but, it really is an area that we should be investigating, more and more, whether it's the sort of mental health risk factors for youth, but also for adults, because we really need to know, what are those underlying factors, because this is a really, really big change. And there's a lot of geopolitical concerns. and strife in the world. We're all increasing our social media. What is the impact of AI going to be on our society? And then many other changes. But we don't really know, what the main, most important factors are.
Doctor, just to build on Frisco's point about turning things around, is it possible to help all of the people out there who need the help? Do we have enough resources, and what more can be done?
Thank you for that question. I think that we have to be sort of thinking in two mindsets. So, number one, I think always pushing and trying to create those resources and keep up the new, trend we have and sort of decreasing stigma, which is great, and increasing knowledge so that people are more aware about something that's happening to them, where they could benefit from getting some help. And then we have to be, I think, more creative and innovative in terms of ways to provide that help, like thinking, we do think here at CAMH about chatbots and how AI could help, bolster, what the treatment is that is getting offered here at CAMH, but also elsewhere in the province. So, working at ways that making our system easier to access, getting people in earlier. So earlier intervention is great. And then the other whole area to look at is just this prevention side. And, we've really we're really pushing here at CAMH. We've made it like a goal to think upstream and move upstream, because we know that there's so much we could do earlier on to prevent, and that would be the ideal to help these things before they even happen.
That's a great point. The upstream is something we've heard a lot about lately. It's a great point. Doctor, this may sound like a silly question, but you're someone who deals with this. You're in the addictions treatment world. How do you stay positive when you see so much negativity?
Oh, it's a great question. I think that the biggest help is the team that's around us. So we have a really, really great group of people that work here from many disciplines, and we see people really change. We see great stories of people doing better. We also see many, many sad stories. So we have to sort of manage both those experiences, and we try to make sure that we also share the good stories. So a good example is sometimes we'll have people who are showing up in our Emerge, really, really struggling, being seen there multiple times. And then, they might get to our program and we're working with them. And when they do improve, I'll try to send an email to the Emerge team lead and say, hey, thanks for caring, so much, the great care you provided. Just wanted to let you know they're doing better, so that their moods also, they know that what they're doing is making a difference. And I think that's what helps us get through.
That's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that, Doctor. That's because we don't hear that enough.
Doctor, if a person struggling right now is listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, or their loved one, what's your message to them?
Oh, that's great. So, we care a lot about families, and we know that it's more, than just the person that we're working with directly that is suffering and experiencing worry and all the things that go with that. I would say, that you never know when things are going to turn around. So sometimes when you're in a difficult moment, just hold on, because sometimes out of the blue for no reason, we'll see big improvements in with how people are doing. I would say if you're even thinking or wondering about reaching out for help of some sort, go ahead and do it. I know it can be hard and difficult, but people who work, let's say, because I work in addictions, people who work in addictions are here because we really, really love this work, and we love working with the people that we work with. So that we're here with a positive attitude. So come and see us. And then I would say sort of like my message to overall everyone would be that, working to reduce stigma. And, when you are trying to help someone who's struggling with mental health or with substance use, you might want to fix, right? And trying to fix, and why, if you're not experiencing it, you don't understand how difficult it is. So trying to hold back on the trying to fix and think about sort of like not why can't you get better, but what can I do to help? So, just trying to be supportive and asking people what you can do is a great approach.
All great points. Just to be clear, where should a person start if they want help? Should they reach out to CAMH? Who do they go to?
Yeah. So, there's something called rapid access addiction medicine clinics. They're all over Ontario. There's over 80 of them. And one of the unique things that Addictions has done, we have one at CAMH, is we really try to get rid of the barriers. So you don't have to have an appointment. You don't have to be registered at CAMH or where these other RAMs are, RAM, Rapid Access Addiction Medicine. You Google it, you get the whole list of them. So you go, what's in your area, and you just walk in. During the hours it's open, and you get seen, you get assessed, and you get direction, maybe even a medication to start your process in working on substance use.
That's hugely helpful. We'll be sure to highlight that in the piece.
Sure.
This is the last question for me, Doctor, because I know you're extremely busy, but you were talking earlier about different things to help our mental health. Even long before someone goes into a real deep mental health struggle, just things like socializing and getting outside. What's your number one recommendation for people who to improve their mental health? What is it? Exercise? What is it?
Yeah, so I would say that sometimes it's a bit custom, right? So it's really helpful, I think, for everyone to think about, like, what are the things that work for me? And you've already mentioned, like, the two best ones. So exercise doesn't have to be extremely rigorous. It can even just be, walking. If you're walking outside, it means you're getting, we know the sun is important. So you're getting some sunshine, you're getting fresh air. If you need encouragement for your walk, I sometimes will say to someone, if they like coffee, like maybe walk to the coffee shop and back, just to, because we're all human, right? Sometimes we need a little reward or an incentive. And then the social connection one too. And sometimes that's hard if we're not feeling great or we're struggling. So really think about maybe doing it in a slightly different way. So, pick out the people you feel most comfortable with. You don't always have to talk about what's distressing you, but you might with the certain people when you feel comfortable. But you can also just think about, socializing, having a coffee, something that seems doable to you, and thinking about reducing your stress. So that's helpful for mental health and for substances. Sometimes we'll reach for substances because we're feeling stressed, and it's a way to escape that. But think about all the ways that you could sort of manage and reduce your stress that might be, healthier than, let's say, substance use. And that would be, whether it's going for massages or, doing some exercise, increasing your social, and sort of like thinking a little bit about it strategically. Not just sort of like, more reactively, like we tend to, and be thinking all the time about how, treating yourself, how am I managing my stress? What could I do? Am I sleeping enough? Warm baths, so that you're just mindful of not slipping into unhealthy coping strategies, and you're just a little more active on the planning side.
All right, good stuff. There's Dr. Leslie Buckley, the Chief of the Addictions Division at CAMH. Doctor, we truly appreciate your time tonight. Thanks for joining us. We're always grateful when we have superb guests like Dr. Buckley come on the show. And here's the one thing that, kept running through my mind as I was listening to her speak. It's okay to not be okay.
Absolutely. And
there is help and there are resources. And look, here's the truth of the matter. We're all dealing with stuff. Everybody's dealing with stuff, but there is help out there.
There is help, absolutely. And I think it also, what rung true to me is how important it is to have this kind of data. Data is the foundation for all that we do. Right?
Yes.
We have to
Can't deny it.
We have to know what's going on in order to deal with that issue. And this is a great example. And the fact that they've been doing this for 49 years now, this annual report, and you can see the trends over time, is fascinating. And I say it all the time, but someone like Dr. Buckley coming on, this was all over the news yesterday. This was. Every major news organization reported on this report. It's so important. And we get a chance to sit down with Dr. Buckley and have a more in-depth conversation than maybe you would have read in the newspaper or seen on the national news last night. And I thought it was just an excellent discussion of that report. Not just the report, but like you said, where people can get help, which is super. So if anyone takes anything out of this conversation, hopefully it's what you just said.
All right. Good stuff. Closer look at villagemedia.ca. That is our email address. Reach out anytime. We'd love to hear from you. And closerlookpodcast.ca is our website. Derek Turner at the controls, as always, this evening. For Michael Friscolanti, our editor-in-chief, I'm Scott Sexsmith. Thanks for your time this evening. We truly appreciate it. Let's do it again tomorrow night, 7 o'clock sharp, right here on Closer Look.
Frisco and Scott's Wardrobe provided in part by Moores, Sault Ste. Marie.